It all starts in the war against the Demon King 1,000 years ago. On the day the demonic beasts crossed the front lines and attacked the humans, you're probably already thinking, oh damn, here comes another one of those cliché stories. I've seen this beginning like 16 times already. But hold on, my warrior. Take it easy. Humanity fought against the creatures for survival. However, the long and never-ending war continued. The ground kept being soaked in blood while the number of demonic beasts in decrease. Until suddenly someone shows up riding the black dragon. That's when the legendary mage appeared. Bro. He easily managed to wipe out the entire field, defeating all the demonic beasts. Just the majestic presence of the dragon alone already caused fear in all the beasts. Everyone on the battlefield worshipped the hero. But then, out of nowhere, he suddenly fell dead to the ground. The mage met a mysterious death at the same moment he won the war against the demons. The mage said he would be waiting for the one obsessed with strength, the one who wouldn't succumb to temptations or corruption. The scene then changes completely to the subway, where people are watching a UFC match. It was the 17th fight of the world champion defending his title. Around the octagon, everyone was cheering and shouting for the challenger. In the blue left corner was some guy named Patrick, the challenger. 120 kilos of pure dry muscle like a bodybuilder, and everyone's yelling for him to kill. Meanwhile, in the right corner is the world champion with 37 fights and 37 wins. Someone who has never lost a single match to this day and is ripped at 5% body fat, 100 kilos of muscle, black hair with swag. The two are face to face. The announcer says that Kim Jin-ho doesn't seem to be using his foot lately. And Patrick said in an interview that he must have an injured foot and that today is the day he loses. Everyone's starting to think that eventually Kim Jin-ho has to lose. The guy's already 48 years old. There's no way he's going to keep winning forever. And with that, the bell rings to start the fight. Patrick didn't even move yet, and he's already frozen stiff. The presence of that bastard in front of him was terrifying. It was expected from the champion. But he already knows that guy's leg is injured, so he goes toward him to try a takedown and throw him to the ground. He dodges low to grab his legs, saying that this guy is arrogant for even coming to the ring injured. But the moment he's just about to touch the leg and is smiling because he thinks he got it, there's already a laser coming from the side, bro. Blood gushes in the arena, and that's it. The fight is over, man. Patrick's all messed up over there. Kim Jin-ho says that's why he wasn't using his leg. Otherwise, it'd be too easy. Damn, what a cocky guy. Sometime later, he puts on his coat, slams the locker shut, and is getting ready to leave. A man, kind of joking, tells him to wait, saying there are people who want to interview him, that he should talk to the fans and all that stuff. But Jin-ho just says to tell them to send a message. When his schedule's open, he's got better things to do. His friend says he needs to understand. It's pouring rain outside, traffic is a disaster. Jin-ho says that's even better. He'll run and get there faster. Suddenly, he already slammed the door, and the friend tries to leave, saying it's 30 kilometers away. But the guy wasn't even there anymore. He vanished in front of everyone. And now it's the reporters who are annoying the coach, wanting to know how he created the legend. The protagonist goes back home while the coach thinks it's honestly going to be sad. He remembers the first time he saw this kid fight. He debuted by finishing the opponent with a punch. Next fight was an elbow. Most fights didn't last more than 30 seconds. And all the coach can feel is sadness. He's certain Kim Jin-ho won't find anyone capable of facing him until the day he retires. And then he tells the reporters that the leg thing was just to make the fight harder. Sometime later, arriving at the apartment, he's soaking wet. 14th floor full of presents at the entrance from fans. And bro, the guy is the world champion, right? His place is a giant mansion. And it's in an apartment building, you get it. The guy made a mansion in the building. But what he loves the most is right there, man. It's the gamer PC. That's right, bro, our UFC world champion is a gaming addict too. Not just any game, but one called Last Savior. A game so hard that most Korean users who usually like this kind of niche gave up. Kim Jin-ho, however, has been playing it every single day for the past 10 years. He's been honing his skills in fighting and stronger people and monsters. That's how he's been living his life. The protagonist smiles, saying he hopes he doesn't win today like always. There was his character, Fimi, on the battlefield. What he liked the most was the feeling of challenging a creature. And once again, he was going up against the Demon King, Asura. Some time passes, and Jin-ho's expression changes. He was face to face with the Demon King, but the creature had almost no health left. He looks at the HP bar, he couldn't believe it. At this rate, he was going to win. He hits the Demon King, telling the bastard to defend himself properly. He tries an attack to the legs and wonders how he didn't dodge something so obvious. The poor NPC is trying to fight back, but it's tough. Kim Jin-ho's blonde character is finishing him off, while wondering why the patterns today were way too simple. Because every single attack he was throwing was landing perfectly. He activates a lion's aura and a bunch of slashes appear on the Demon King. When he turned on the PC today, his intention was to challenge again, aiming for victory. But right now, he was scared of winning. He tells the Demon King to hold on and try something different, that he was going to win, that he wasn't going to lose today. Kim Jin-ho was even bending his finger commands, trying somehow not to win this. But it was inevitable. In the end, he landed a slash that killed the Demon King. With that, he was congratulated for being the first person to kill Demon King Izar. At that moment, Kim Jin-ho's expression changed. He had become a champion in two completely different worlds. The mouse moves to the screen, and now he's angry at himself, wondering who he's going to fight now. Maybe he should go out running in this rain and look for a bear in the forest. But then, in the middle of the clouds, a golden light appears and a strange lightning bolt strikes. When he feels something approaching and looks up, the lightning seems to have struck right into his apartment. The screen goes black and he feels a strange sense of vertigo, while his whole body seems kind of numb. He looks up and sees the rain and wonders when he even left his house. But when he lowers his eyes, he sees he's wearing some weird orange pants. Suddenly, someone puts a hand on his shoulder and calls him by 218. A blonde girl with blue eyes says they don't have time for this. They need to escape from there right now. He shouldn't be standing there like an idiot. He's a bit confused and sees the number 172 on her shirt and instantly wonders where the hell he is. In front of him, there's a bunch more inmates trying to escape from a prison that looks more like a castle. Looking at one of the flags, he thinks he recognizes the eagle's pattern. But then 172 tells him to wake up to reality, because this is the last chance they'll have to escape. If not now, they'll never get out of the butcher's prison. Look at the guy's face, man. And obviously, he already recognized the name Butcher's Prison. I already like the start of this story, right, bro? The guy got escaped by lightning. God looked down and said, that's enough. Go to another world. This one's already too OP. Obviously, even though the protagonist realizes what's happening, he's still kind of dazed while 172 pulls him. Next to them, a bunch of prisoners keep going by, pulling the gate in a tug of war. Kim Jin-ho wanted to believe this was a dream, but at the same time, it felt way too real. He starts running beside the girl, trying to understand how he ended up inside the game he used to play, until he decides to calm down and escape this place first, and then worry about how to solve this mystery. But suddenly, he stops and tells 172 to pay attention. This was weird. This was supposed to be the most secure prison of all, and everything was way too messed up. 172 says it's because Director Clark isn't there. Looks like he stepped out to deal with something, and this is everyone's chance to escape. Kim Jin-ho, however, suddenly grabs her by the collar and runs in the opposite direction. She tells him to let go, saying he's a maniac, but he was sure. This prison was way too secure for it to fall into chaos like this, and something told him that whoever went through that door wasn't going to live much longer. 172 is trying to resist, telling him to let go of her. And at that moment, the others manage to open the door and start celebrating, saying they're finally free. They're all going out while our boy takes her further inside the prison. But obviously, the smiles of the escapees disappeared really fast, bro. Out of nowhere, arms start flying, legs everywhere, and Director Clark is right in front of them all. The guy turns and says this place really is full of pathetic worms. He gives the order for them to be killed, and the troops storm in. 172 asks why he's there, while our boy says right away that this was clearly a trap. Now the criminals are all rushing back into the prison, desperate, bro. The walls were painted in blood. Sometime later, Clark tells them to gather the survivors. The line of criminals forms. Bro, only our protagonist and his friend are different there. Copy and paste was used hard. She's right next to him, almost throwing up. Actually, wow, she threw up in her hand, all of it. It would have been better to just vomit on the floor. And worst of all, for vomiting, she got punched for moving. Jin-ho is shocked that they're that violent even with kids. No wonder riots happen there all the time. If something like that happens again, he's going to have to get involved in a fight. And then Clark shows up in front of him like 78 meters tall, saying the kid is either really lucky or way too much of a coward to have tried escaping. But to him, that's typical. Every mage is like that, nothing but a coward. Calling people like them rivals is disgusting. He gets in our protagonist's face and says that Arahan is going to regret surviving today. The guy leaves and the protagonist stares at his reflection, wondering if he really was just called Arahan. A week later, a beautiful blue sky and our boy is working. They had to spend the whole day stacking rocks. But not because there was a big reason, just so they wouldn't be idle and had something to do. Looking at his own hand, all busted up, our boy, who I don't even know what to call anymore, Kim Jin-ho, 218 Arahan, will figure it out later. But this same guy is complaining that just lifting a rock already makes him run out of breath, and this body is way too weak. Not to mention, they said he's a mage, but he tried to use magic and nothing happened. It seemed like a complete failure, but to him it made no sense. Arahan should know how to use magic. That's because Arahan is the name of the most powerful mage family in that region. That's when it hits him. He was from that family, probably, but was discarded for having no magical talent. Considering how cruel and sadistic that family is, that would make perfect sense. Then the guard tells him to take that rock over to the other side. The protagonist just obeys and carries the rock. He's looking forward to something specific. On the system window, it says that due to excessive data, synchronization is taking a while. The guy was so overpowered in real life. This guy is struggling to download his files. Yesterday and the next day, a meal time. Or well, meal is a strong word. At the time of rock with water and bread, which also looks more like a rock. The protagonist complains he's been training hard, but with food like this, he won't build any muscle. Then 172 shows up and asks if he's not going to eat the bread again. He says no and tells her to take it. Now I'm confused. Jinho says this friend is peculiar. What do you mean? It's a guy? No way. No. I think something's off, probably. Kim Jinho is wondering why this person, and I'll just say person for now until I know if it's a guy or girl, is locked up in here being so young. And 172 tells him to be careful lately. It seems like because of our guy, everyone's workload increased and nobody's happy about it. Now that made sense to Jinho why so many people were staring at him in that place. And 172 tells him to be careful, especially with 589, the leader of the prisoners, who also has a notorious reputation in the arena. Jinho then says it's better not to talk to him, since she might end up at risk too. But 172 says she already knows everyone, so she can just ignore it. And our protagonist stands up, saying they're going to find out right now. A bunch of prisoners start approaching, and he says the situation she mentioned is about to happen. At that moment, 172 is startled when she sees the guy's number. Right, bro? In theory, he's the leader of the prisoners, right? But honestly, I think he's the leader of the bald gang man. So far, only our protagonist and that friend have hair. No way, that's a coincidence. And the leader says he heard the reason their workload increased was because of that kid. 218 just wants to know what he has to do with that. Well, I mean, it is your fault, right, you bastard? He's about to make up an excuse, but there's already a hand the size of his head in front of him, bro. It opened a crater in the ground, and 172 yells out for our boy. But someone grabbed the leader by the neck. What's that, bro? You think Kim Jinho is going to play around? He already lands a knee right in the guy's chin. His friend and the bald guys are all freaking out, calling out to the boss. And the protagonist's expression changed, right, man? He's not the same as before, and now his knee did absolutely nothing. 589 asks, what was that? And now our boy gets grabbed by the collar and is about to get airplane spun, man. The guy was thrown against the wall like protagonist in a couple's fight. Bro. His friend's right there, scared, calling out to 218. But the boss says if he didn't die just now, he can rest assured he's marked for death. Whoa there, boss. You better watch out, because the synchronization just hit 100%, bro. Look at the villain's little grin. Finally, someone installed fiber optic in this cursed system that never loads. And the beatdown is about to begin. He's already getting back up, surrounded by that aura or with his fist full of blue energy. The kids all drive in balls now with those auras, doing that little hand flex and foot warm-up. Whoa, man, he's already in MMA stance, telling the guy to step into the ring. The boss laughs, saying for someone abandoned by his own clan, he really thinks a lot of himself. But Jinho just tells him to shut up already and come into the ring. The boss, tired of the talk, runs straight at him, bro. Our boy sees an opening in the leg and takes a low kick. But what? You thought it would be easy. The guy grabbed his foot, saying the kid's gonna learn a lesson now. But again, what? You thought it would be easy. Our boy pulled the B-blade move, started spinning and landed one right on the side of the head. The boss looked a little dazed, but before he could recover, bam, one more under the chin. Man, the guy just wanted to fall, but the kid wasn't about to stop there. Takes another solid kick and stumbles back. With that, the boss hit the ground out cold. And our guy, still being dramatic, says that's why he doesn't like using his leg much. Suddenly, the whole prison's already pulling out their apple slicers heading toward our boy. Because you can't even call those sticks knives, right, man? But our dude stepped on the boss, pulled his arm, and warned. If they came any closer, this guy was going to need help eating for the rest of his life. With that, the bald heads all froze, not knowing what to say. Jinho stomped on the arm again and said he still saw a lot of people standing there. If they wanted to stop this, then call the guards. Right away, one of them takes off running, saying that when the guards come and free the boss, he's gonna die. Apparently, in the end, all the guys surrendered and just carried the boss away. Sometime later in the cell, 172 wants to know how he did that, saying it was way too amazing. Not to mention, the kid looked like he had grown taller out of nowhere. What happened? The protagonist says it was the result of hauling rocks back and forth. But obviously, that was the result of syncing his real-life stats with the game's. It's the first time the protagonist brings his real-life body, because it's more overpowered than the one from the game, you feel me? Usually, it's always the guy who has a trash body and ends up in an amazing one. And now what our boy is impressed with are the stats. Zed Arahan, full of S-rank immunities. Bro. Immortal Duelist, Challenger rank, S-rank Archmage. Man, Grim has it all. What he finds strange is that his class is really Mage. And because of that, he has 50% or less agility, strength, and resistance. And even though he's in the Mage class, he literally has 0 mana. In other words, he's losing half of his attributes for absolutely nothing. Not to mention that this makes no sense because he belongs to the Arahan family, which is full of geniuses. Meanwhile, 172 is just staring, wondering what this lunatic is rambling about, laughing to himself. There's no way. The guy's lying on the bed, trying to figure out how it's possible he reincarnated into such a garbage body. But first, he needs to calm down and start considering his options. He's got that so-called growth penalty, which is what's cutting 50-50-50. But even then, it's still better than zero. Not to mention, physical strength is something he knows how to develop even better. The only obvious problem is that the food there is terrible and isn't helping at all. What he's curious to understand better is this whole pile of S-rank talents. If he had all that and could have mana, then he'd be completely busted. An Archmage's blessing like that is for very few people. But it's all good. He's going to try to find a way to solve this no mana issue. There's got to be some solution. Right then, suddenly, the guy from outside the cell starts calling out several numbers. Everyone called is forced to leave the cell. He asks what's going on, and 172 says those are the people in the death queue, bro. Basically, they'll have one last meal, and then it's goodbye. He says he gets it, then asks the friend's name. To the sadness of some and the joy of others, the name is Ryu. So yeah, he really is a friend. And our boy introduces himself as Zed Arahan. Arahan's a pretty ugly name, so from now on I'm calling him Zed. Cause Zed is badass, you feel me? Zed asks Ryu if he's going to be in prison long. Who says he'll be escaping soon? Protagonist wants to know how. He says it's simple. The guard up front has a key. Zed thinks he's going to steal it, but Ryu says it's impossible. The guy may be retired, but he's a 5-circle knight. Director Clark is the epitome of a knight who hates mages. That's because in the world of Last Savior, knights and mages hate each other. And now Zed's wondering how he's going to escape this place that's guarded by a 5-circle person. Weird. This is the first time I've seen circles used for someone who doesn't use magic. Then Ryu says it's not that hard. You just have to steal it without him noticing. For someone who came from the streets, that's easy. The only problem is that Clark's very attentive. So far, he hasn't seen a single opportunity. Zed smiles and says now he really sees a way to escape this place. The next day, work is about to start again, and one of the guards announces that by orders of the boss, they'll have to carry even more rocks today. The people are complaining, saying it's not going to work. Soon, everyone's going to die. The guard puts a sword to someone's neck, and one of the bald guys says he just wants to know why they're pushing them so hard. There's no reason for this. The guard looks to the side and says they should already know whose fault it is. Obviously, everyone stares at Zed, and then the guard coughs and says he'll be back in a few minutes. 172 warns him that clearly they're setting him up for the others to jump him. Oh yeah, our protagonists already notice that these knights who follow the code of honor are acting very differently than they should. While Ryu is off running, he's not getting involved in this. But it looks like he's got some kind of plan, because he says he's not going to let Zed die. Obviously, all the inmates are coming to the same conclusion. To make the work easier, they're going to have to kill Zed. The protagonist smiles and says it really is an unavoidable situation. All the thugs rush toward him, saying he's way too confident. But as soon as the first one comes in, bam, he gets welcomed with a knee to the chin. Bowling ball drops to the floor, and everyone's scared now, wondering who's going to be the next crazy one to charge in. But Zed just says for them to all come at him at once already. And there goes the crew again. But the first one that comes is again met with a hammer blow to the head. While he's throwing elbows and smashing, Zed is pissed that these bastards keep coming one by one and then another and another, instead of just attacking him all together. Another one falls to the ground and he says these guys are really lacking aggression. And just as he notices something, he ducks just in time and dodges an attack. Another knee and more headbutts, punches. It's a full-on brawl everywhere. And from a distance, Ryu is watching all this. The boy was leaving a trail of bodies on the ground, and he had no idea Zed was this strong. But right at that moment, someone next to him calls out to Ryu and tells him to come along. Meanwhile, Zed is already drop-kicking guys in the stomach. As always, they pull out those 3cm knives, which I mean are big enough, impressive even. At least that's what she said. But Zed already lands one on the next guy's face, telling him again to come at him with everything. And obviously, at that point, he was having fun. The guy fought his whole life. So if there's one thing he likes, it's having his life on the line. There's nothing better than dodging an attack that could have killed you. That adrenaline is what got him so addicted, both to that game and to martial arts. He hits one more in the chin, another in the back of the neck, while going crazy bro. Clearly not right in the head, obviously, until someone steps on his back and calls out for the damn Zed Arahan. Majin Buu grabs the cracked-out albino kid Buu and tells him that if he doesn't stop, his friend's going to die. Obviously, yeah, Ryu had been captured, but our boy just smiles and says they made a huge mistake. Ryu was trying to break free, biting and everything. And the cracked kid Buu says the kid's going to die to a 2-circle knight, so it's not that shameful. He jumps in to attack, but obviously Zed dodges it with ease. The guy looks like he doesn't even know what just happened, saying Zed disappeared. And when he looks to the side, there they are, already chatting calmly. Kid Buu wants to know what just happened, what kind of magic he used. Our guy says, wasn't magic, bro. A movement of skin starts to approach, looks like a ballerina, but lands a perfect hit to the neck. The poor guy got dragged across the floor. But right then, Clark shows up calling for number 218, saying he's going to have to explain himself. But someone speaks up and says 218 was the victim. It's Ryu, who explains that he had been taken hostage, and it was Zed who saved him. Clark looks at the pile of guys knocked out on the floor, and he seems pissed that these guys only ever get beat up. He then says he wants to ask Zed something. He wants to know if, somehow, he's been using mana. Kind of uninterested, Zed says, maybe. But then Clark activates his aura. The prisoners on the ground get up just to say they can't breathe, while Ryu, who was still standing, drops to the floor. Now that makes sense. But through all that, bro, our guy is just standing there, untouched inside a mana barrier. It was one of the S-rank traits, resistance to suppression. He finally figured it out. It was a mental immunity ability. The guy is so full of himself, he says it all makes sense. He reached the pinnacle of Earth, won 27 fights in a row at the top of the world. There's no way some mediocre person from a world like this would ever scare him. Clark, however, didn't like seeing the kid still standing. He's losing his mind. He wants to know how the hell a bastard with no mana is still resisting this. The guy even pulls more of the aura and starts pushing harder. Any more and he'd probably crap his pants for sure. But S-rank suppression resistance is absolute man. And with his hand on his waist, he's totally chillin'. Clark's expression changes. He can't even understand how this is possible. The rest of the guards are begging him to stop, saying at this rate, everyone there is going to die. Suddenly, Clark deactivates his aura. Staring at Zed, he says it's best he try to calm down. Otherwise, at any moment, he's going to cut his throat. He gives the boy one last stare and turns away, telling everyone to get back to work. But man, Zed tells him to wait a second and says he's got something to say. He says he's tired of doing that idiotic rock stacking thing, and he's more than fed up with this bunch of prisoners attacking him. And that's why he's planning to end it all. Ryu asks what this lunatic is talking about, to which Zed replies he wants to join the death row, bro. Clark questions whether he has any idea what he's saying. It's not something he can just change his mind about later. But our boy says Clark can even record it in a crystal ball if he wants. He's not backing down. Clark says, perfect then, and tells someone to bring a registration item. Right away, Zed says that now that he's on death row, he wants to request his last meal. He wants a birdie steak. A big enough portion to fill his belly. Looks like that's something really expensive, because the guards' faces say it all, bro. They say it's madness. Obviously, that top-quality steak is prepared only in the Southern Empire. In the game, it was one of the rarest foods you could consume. Delicious enough to restore even strength lost to age. Some people even ate it in the middle of battle to buff themselves and win the fight, man. Our boy, though, seems to be planning to stockpile it. I don't get it. Let's see what he's up to. He tells Clark that considering the family he's from and the cost of his life, it's a fair request. Besides, he warns that he knows what the real thing is like. So if they try to trick him, the whole deal will be voided. Ryu, though, wants to know why the hell this lunatic is trying to die. Then Zed says he'd forgotten about his friend. The two of them are on death row now. The staff hesitates, but Clark interrupts and says to follow orders. Since it's the life of an Arahan, it's worth it. Our girl thanks them, while obviously Ryu is freaking out, wanting to know why he is dragged into this. Next scene, he's in his room getting ready, apparently just finding that steak takes over a week. Our boy is using this time to keep training. Ryu, on the other hand, thinks it makes no sense. He's going to die anyway, so why bother exercising? Zed then reveals a special little system. 100 is the max number for any attribute, and all remaining experience gets funneled into the one that hasn't been leveled yet. And since he has 100 in every other attribute, obviously all the experience he earns goes into mana. Right in the middle of this, a guard shows up calling for the two of them, and Zed already celebrates, saying it's finally here. The meal, the extremely rare steak, is being prepared. As soon as Yuk the beef takes a bite, he cries with emotion, saying he's never eaten anything so good in his life. To which Zed says, don't forget, that's thanks to me. Some of our guy's negative status effects are being partially erased. He can feel like part of the experience that was blocked is finally entering his body. Meanwhile, someone enters Clark's room and says the banquet has begun. He celebrates and orders no one to approach the two of them, while wondering what the hell happened that day. The boy didn't resist, and yet Clark felt something strange. It was like his magic didn't resonate. Even though he's retired, he's still a 5-circle knight. A young mage with no mana should not be able to do something like that. Something terrible must have happened that day. But today, he's sure he'll get the information he needs. Looking at the bracelet, he's sure the humiliation will be hundreds of times worse. Sometime later, the banquet is over and the two of them are stuffed. Ryu says he's ready to die, but our boy says, unfortunately, he's not. Now his body was full of energy and strength, the same feeling he had when he spent the whole day punching the sandbag. The door opens and he turns around saying that they finally arrived, already asking Clark what he plans to do now that they've eaten everything. Clark starts to say something, but our boy tells him to wipe off that sad smile. He should be disappointed. There wasn't even a little bit left. Clark, though, is just getting more and more pissed, saying that this bastard thinks too highly of himself just because of his bloodline. But it's all good. He puts a hand on his shoulder, thinking it's fine. He'll make the boy succumb to agony today. Poor old man, 40 years old, struggling to deal with a teenager. Now it's revealed. Clark wants to take advantage of having someone from the Arahan family there to extract information. Any detail about how that family works is worth good money. He then activates the power of the bracelet, and Zed notices it instantly. That man is a magical tool. Clark asks what he's thinking about that sensation. But of course, Zed is just standing there, completely fine. Ryu is nearly fainting and collapses to the side. Then Zed tells Clark he should behave a little better. Clark loses it and goes in with both hands on Zed's shoulders. But nothing happens. Zed just gives his hand a little pat. And now, apparently, the fight is about to start. Because he tells Clark that he warned him to take it easy. If he wanted to kill someone, he should have done it the proper way and not just keep whining. Clark, though, was all twisted up, not understanding why his magical tool isn't working. That would only be possible if the kid had a magical circle above his. But at his age, there's no way. That doesn't make sense at all. Which only leaves one other option. He must have some kind of bloodline from the Arahans that cancels out powers. Clark, man, to get to the 5th circle, he had to train and practice hard his whole life. But even if failed mage discarded by the family can resist this artifact, suddenly the item shuts off. And Zed asks if he's finally going to stop with this nonsense. Apparently, Clark gives up on threatening him and just lowers his head, saying that he can resist all he wants. Now that the decree has come down from the Majesty, he'll be executed tomorrow morning. He should enjoy his last night in this world. Sometime later in his room, he's making some notes. Even though he couldn't learn much, he's writing it all down. The problem is that he's dozing off, exhausted. His mana was used to the limit to activate that artifact. He wants to finish the report, but the pen slips from his hand. A while later, Ryu wakes up in the room, and Zed wants to know if he's finally getting up. He tells him to stop complaining, even if he feels nauseous or like throwing up. But our boy compliments him, saying he really does have fast hands. Aw man, I wasn't going to say anything, but I felt that moment when he leaned forward to fall. It was suspicious. I thought he's sitting down and falls forward, got up just to fall again. Weird, right? But now there's the reason, man. Our boy praises him, saying he did a good job. For anyone else, it would have been insane, but he was really quiet and sneaky. Ryu, though, says it only worked because Zed distracted Clark, and he wants to know if he's really okay after all that. Our boy says he is, and then Ryu says there's definitely something shady about him. At that moment, Zed decides to ignore that and check his status. Mana is still at 0, but now everything else went down to -40, meaning he's a bit stronger. That steak really made a difference. His body is becoming more and more comfortable to inhabit, and he can't even imagine how good it'll feel with 100% stats. Then he tells his friend they're going to have to escape tonight. So if he's recovered, it's time. Ryu says this is madness. Clark is going to notice them showing up any second now. But our guy, obviously aware, says not to worry. He's probably sleeping. Ryu is curious, but the reason is obvious, right, folks? That bracelet Clark used pulls an absurd amount of mana from the body, but it causes exhaustion right after. And since Zed saw the item shut off earlier, he knows the guy is asleep. All thanks to the fact that he was taken to that room. And this guy walks around with the keys. The plan was easy. The time to leave had come, and the two of them get up. Ryu is hesitant, but our boy says the hard part is already over. He kicks the bars, and they fall right down, bro. It's not like a few bits of metal were going to stop him. Obviously, on the outside. The first guards already react, wanting to know what he thinks he's doing. To which Zed replies, "Isn't it obvious, bro? I'm escaping this place." Didn't even see what hit them, and the two are already outside, running through the yard. But turns out those damn organized guards are already lined up at the gate. Oh, poor guys who showed up to stop him, man. Just look at the guy in the middle. Bro, you've got 0 chance. The guards shot at Zed to stop, but Zed just rushes forward, scaring Ryu. The first guy in the way looks like he's got 6 kids Zed's age. He runs past, dodging easily, then plants a hand right in the guy's face, slamming one guard into another like playing bowling with dudes. Poor guards are already all laid out, bent and twisted. Before the second one could react, bam, a hit straight to the jugular. A clean tap that knocked the air right out of him. Zed keeps moving in from the right, and now the rest were basically getting eaten alive. He kicks the first guy he threw, while the ones behind are more focused on defending than attacking. Some fool tries a sword swing, but Zed ducks under it and lands a heel kick straight in the guy's ribs. The guy practically fell on his feet. Zed even blocked the next sword swing with a hand on the ground. Another kick. Man, this dude is the king of Taekwondo. Another fool went face first into the dirt, and 2 more poor souls came from behind. And look at the psycho's face, huh? Enjoying himself like always. I don't even know what he did, but he landed a kick on one guy that knocked him into the other. Meanwhile, Ryu can't even believe what he's seeing. Sometime later, just look at Clark's face now, totally dumbfounded. Realizes he fell asleep at the worst possible time. His guys are all wrecked on the ground, begging for forgiveness. Unfortunately, number 218 had escaped. Obviously, he gives the order immediately to start the hunt. But the scene shifts now, to a hotel in a village near the detention center. Ryu is looking around, checking if anyone's coming. Obviously, he and our boy stand out a lot in those orange uniforms. At least Ryu knows the whole area, so he starts showing Zed around and explaining how things work. First thing they needed to do was blend in better with the locals. So they hit up a beggar's stash to steal his clothes, bro, saying that was the best way to hide. Ryu says he'll go grab some food, and our boy asks how, since they don't have any money. But the little thief is a femboy, right, bro? He's gonna steal it easy. And he even tells Zed to just wait there like a side character. He'll be right back. 1 or 2 hours later, our boy has a different colored eye. That's because the thief even brought him a contact lens. They're in the southern region where people adore the old hero, and that's why blue eyes are kind of a trendy item. Our boy guesses it might be because of the clan that the main character Torres Barrel belonged to. That was the Sword X family, and their enemies obviously were the Arahans. Just like they hated each other and were opposites, even the eye color was different. And obviously for that reason, he couldn't go around flashing those glowing red eyes. Sometime later, they're in a cabin in the forest. It's kind of like the beginning after the end, where the protagonist gets lost in the forest with the elf girl. Except here, in this case, it's with the femboy instead. And only now is reality starting to hit Zed. He's wondering how the hell he ended up inside a game, and what kind of situation is this where now he has to sleep in a stable. But the madman says that at least life is fun. What Zed really wants to know is why this crazy guy Ryu is always glued to him. Also, it seemed like the guy kept calling him a side character, which didn't make any sense. He still needs help, so he'll keep Ryu close for now. But he needs to be careful. He doesn't know him well yet. He doesn't know how long he can trust this person. Thanks, man. Our boy's all lonely, huh? Though it does make sense, right? He was 40 years old, spent all of his time fighting and playing games. There wasn't a single soul in that house.